Hi and welcome to this chapter about the evolution of decision services between releases 23D and 24D. Basically, you can think of this as the evolution of the decision services web authoring platform between 23D and 24D, which amounts to the year 2024. Without further ado, let's see what's coming up. There's a large number of features that have been introduced or enhanced in 2024. We're going to look at these, not necessarily in the order that they were released. I'd remind you that if you need to know exactly when something was released, you can check out our What's New series on intelligent-advisor.com to find out exactly that. Some of these changes impact decision services. Some impact also Oracle policy modeling. And we'll show you with demos how each of them change the authoring environment. Before we begin, in case you hadn't already realized, the decision services and the flows both share a common rule authoring environment. So the features shown here that are related to functions, rule blocks, object lists, these are common elements that exist both in decision services and flow rules. So they'll work in both. Some of the features are essentially replacing features that already exist in Oracle policy modeling. So we can see that decision services and the web authoring platform in general is maturing and coming closer to having the same functionality as Oracle policy modeling. However, they are a long way from that today. Some of the functionality I'm going to present is unique to the Generation 2 platform. Now, if you haven't heard about Generation 2, I strongly recommend taking a look at the article that came out in November on intelligent-advisor.com, which introduces this. It's been piloted and it's been signaled for quite a while. It is, first of all, just a new iteration of Oracle Policy Modeling, Oracle Intelligent Advisor Hub, Word, Excel, Decision Services, Flows. So it's not a dramatic change. Most of the changes are, in fact, on the infrastructure side, on the server side. For example, if you choose to create an instance of Generation 2, your instance will be in a Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI instance, in a fully cloud-native region. Customers today who have, for example, Intelligent Advisor Generation 1 and have other OCI services have two separate management consoles, one for managing their Oracle Intelligent Advisor environments and one for managing everything else in OCI. In Generation 2, Oracle Intelligent Advisor is brought completely into the OCI cloud-native platform. It does not affect OPM. It does not affect web authoring in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis. Word, Excel, Decision Services, Flows, whatever. It's been implemented to make it easier for customers in cloud regions where there are specific sovereignty and data residency issues to adopt Oracle Intelligent Advisor. It requires that you use Oracle Identity Cloud to manage authorizations as to who can use your Oracle Intelligent Advisor Hub. You may know that this is an option in Gen 1. You can decide to connect Oracle Intelligent Advisor to Identity Cloud. In Generation 2, it's not an option. It has to be that way. And finally, in Generation 2, you say goodbye to one functionality of Oracle Policy Modeling. That was the experimental feature called RuleScript. RuleScript is not supported in Gen 2. So if you've got something written in RuleScript today, and I know many customers have, you'll need to migrate that to another form of rules. And we'll be looking at that in upcoming articles on intelligent-advisor.com. So let's dig in to each of these, hopefully with also a little bit of a moving picture, a demo example. Let's start with something really easy. The history of development of a decision service project. You can now at any time flip open on the right-hand side the version history panel to see the version history of the thing that you're editing. As you can see in my screenshot, I'm editing a decision service called Chapter 7, and I'm currently looking at the draft version, so that's why draft is highlighted. But you can also see that there were various other versions dated in August 23 and November 24. If I actually go in now to the platform, let's go have a look. So this is the live picture. You'll also notice the pencil is here. This was introduced around about the same time. You can now edit comments. So if you forgot to put comments in, this is a wonderful way to go back and actually add development comments. So the version history tab is pretty cool. And while we're here talking about visual elements, you may or may not have noticed that there's also a data model tab which has been added to decision services to allow you, a bit like the data tab in OPM, to visualize the structure of your decision service. Let's go back into the presentation and carry on. Now, you've been able to use a decision service reference in Oracle Policy Modeling for quite some time. That is, an Oracle Policy Modeling project can call a decision service in order to obtain some output. If that doesn't mean anything to you, I strongly recommend you take a look at the example decision service called Environment. And if you go to intelligent-advisor.com, look under the lists and look under the example projects list, you can pick out the environment project and you can see a video of how to create a reference between Oracle Policy Modeling and Oracle Decision Services. But that's not why I'm talking about references here. In a new feature introduced in 2024, a decision service can now reference another decision service, pretty much in the same way as you could always reference an a decision service from an OPM project. So that explains this icon that you can see here that some of you might have been looking at thinking, well, what the heck is that? So let's go and examine that in real life. So I'm going to come up to my list of projects and I'm going to be here. I'm going to look first of all at a project called Ticket by Age. And this is the decision service. And you can see that it basically says, depending on the age of the person, the ticket costs a different amount of money. You'll notice that I have an input, which is the age of the person, and an output, which is the cost of the ticket. So far, absolutely nothing different than anywhere else. But this project is actually used both individually, but also as a reference. So if I come up and take a look at this project, another decision service, this decision service is all about creating a discounted price using the cost of the ticket multiplied by 85. So it's just a simple one-line calculation. But if we look closely, we can see that it relies upon that other decision service to get the cost of the ticket, because we have the age of the person, which we are sending, and the cost of the ticket, which we are returning. So age service flat references ticket by age. So the two work together. While we're talking about referencing in general, there has also been an improvement to Oracle Policy Modeling references. So when an Oracle Policy Modeling project wants to reference a decision service, let's take a look at what that means for us. So in this Oracle policy modeling project, you'll see that I have an entity called the person, and it has a variety of attributes: the number of children, the person scale reference, and global has a couple of attributes as well: the global area and the global date of the scale. By scale, we mean a table of data. So what does that mean? It means that if I was to calculate something for a person, for example, an amount for a person, maybe I want to use the number of children of the person as part of my inputs, but maybe I also want to use an area and a date as part of my inputs, but they're not in the same entity. So when I come to create a reference, now in the most recent releases, when I define my inputs, such as the decision service requires an area, a number of children, a date, and a reference, you'll notice here that these are the attributes from Oracle Policy Modeling, and I'm actually mixing an attribute of the person, a global attribute, another attribute of the person, and another global attribute. So I'm no longer required that all of the inputs come from the same entity. The output comes as an output for the person, so the service reference is calculated for each instance of the person. So if I debug this, let's set the global area. I live in mainland France, and let's set the global date. So these two attributes will apply to both persons. So if I enter Richard as person number 1, and I choose this rating system, and I say Richard has 3 children, and let's do Anna, and let's choose a different scale, and say 5 children, you'll notice that we both have different answers because it's taking each scale per person, the number of children per person, but it's taking the area and the reference date from global. And it's still working properly. There are no errors such as not available here. It's handling the fact that these attributes are from 2 different scopes, global and the person. And of course, you could extend that further down the chain. So if the person had a child entity and another child entity, the typical parent chain would work. Still on the subject of references, one more feature, now that we have essentially more sophisticated references, and we have references not just between OPM decision services, but between decision services, there's now a report that you can generate. This report is available from the Oracle Intelligent Advisor Hub on the Deployments tab, and you have to go to the source of the reference. So in my case, it was tickets by age. I'll use that one. And we go over to the Actions menu, and you have a, oh, I've opened the wrong one. So go to Deployments, open the deployment, click Actions, and you'll see the References report appear. The References report is, as usual in these cases, a CSV file, and when we open the CSV file, we'll see that we have a to and a from. So the reference is from age service flat to ticket by age. It's a decision service, and it has the from and to workspaces and the appropriate version. And is it from the active version? Yes, it is. So we are able to create a references report. Now on to some more practical items, specifically functions added to web authoring. So let's go and have a look at some functions that are included in the latest web authoring. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at this rule set, if I remember where it is. No, let's use another one. In this example, I'm using the one-of function. The one-of function, as its name suggests, is being able to select one of something. So the cheapest car is what I'm trying to refer to, and the selected cars is an object list. So one-of requires a value or a record list. So in this example, you'll see that I've combined three popular functions in this decision service. First of all, we have selected cars using the filter function. You're probably used to filter by now. Filter looks at a record list, in this case the cars, which is up here, these three cars, and filters them according to the value of the car interests the buyer. So the car interests the buyer if the car make is Talbot or Matra. So you can probably work out that the selected cars basically are this one and this one, because we get rid of Simca because it's not one of the brands that interest the buyer. Then we identify the cheapest car using the first function, which is it will return a record instance, and only one, the first one. And it says, otherwise it'll return nothing at all. And it says, okay, go look in the cars and go see if the car price is the minimum of the car's prices. So in this case, it would be selecting the Simca. So the cheapest car is the Simca. The selected cars are everything but the Simca. And then we have the cheapest car is selected using one-of. And one-of exists in two versions. This is the version that's involving record instances and lists. So it's basically saying if the cheapest car is one of the selected cars, then it means the cheapest car is selected. So if I go live, we know from our example that this is going to be false because the cheapest car is the Sim, but the selected cars are Talbot and Matra, because those are the ones that interest the driver. If we were to change this so that, let's go back into edit mode, and let's put Simca, and go back into live mode, the cheapest car is selected would be true because the cheapest car is now one of those two cars. There it is. And the two cars are in this case now the Simca and the Talbot. So one-of selects one of something. The second example is in range. This one should be fairly straightforward. This uses the other version, so this is not talking about lists of records. It's basically saying the car is in our price range if the car price is somewhere between 20 and 200. So that's a really simple function. A feature which has been around for a while in Oracle Policy Modeling, which has just been introduced to decision services, or rather I should say web rule authoring, is you can now branch projects. So you can branch them, but what is missing right now is the ability, like you have in OPM, to compare the two and easily merge in changes. At the moment, you have to open both of the projects in maybe two separate browsers and compare the two. So it's not really fit for purpose just yet. But how do you do it? It's really straightforward. You go to a project, whatever that project may be. Let's take this one. Go to the Actions menu, and we have Branch. And this is going to be our demo branch. And just like when you do it in Oracle Policy Modeling, once the branch is complete, so it opens the branch, which is really nice. And if we take a look at our branch here, and open the version history, just like we showed you earlier, you'll notice that it says branch from the original one, so we know where it came from, and the hyperlink will actually take me back to that original project, which I think is pretty cool. Templates. Templates are something that has been around for a while, and now these are decision service templates. So template is, as its name suggests, it's basically a template that you can create copies of. You might do this because you want to use rules all the time in different projects, or you might have a particular structure that you want everyone to obey. You might have comments that you want to always be in there. One example is supplied out of the box, but you can create as many as you want. So let's go ahead and have a look. So let's go out of this project. You'll notice, first of all, that there's now a template header here. So you have the templates option. You'll see that there's a standard template, and when you click plus, you would create a decision service based on that template. And you can say, I want to create a decision service. I'm going to call, this is the template, and I'm going to create it. And you'll see that this decision service already has a whole bunch of stuff inside it. So I basically clone something to get a copy. You'll also notice that I've created a demo here with absolutely not much in it. So the question might be is, well, how do I create a template? It's really simple. When you click the Create button on the Projects tab, just make sure that you choose Decision Service Template. And you can then build your template and save it as a template so that other people can use it. So it can be used as the starting point for other decision services. Yet more functions that have been added into web authoring in general. So we've got the sort, the reverse, the combine, and the exclude. So let's go and have a look at some of these. So in this project, you can see that we have a list of rows here called the proofs of identity. And they have a document type identifier, and they have a document acceptance value, kind of like the quality of the document. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a couple of examples. The first one is the result. So the result is going to be the proofs of identity, which we've just been looking at, sorted using the document acceptance value, and it's going to be sorted descending order. If you don't put the descending in, it assumes it's going to be the ascending order. So at the moment, this is basically looking like it's descending order anyway. So I'm going to play with these a little bit, and we'll put a 7 in here and a 3 in there, or sorry, 1 in there. And I'll commit those changes. So the first thing we're going to look at is the result. In order to be able to show you the result, of course, I have declared the result in the output. And I have also declared a result score. And the result score is basically just a copy of this value. So once we've sorted it, we should be able to see, just by looking at the acceptance value, whether the sort has been successful. So let's go live. And let's get rid of that for the moment and look at the results. So now we have the result score. We have 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 1. So we can see that that has been sorted in reverse order. The second example we're going to look at is index of. And we have a Boolean here called the document required for the airport, which I'm sure you can imagine is a particular document. It's the passport. So all this is going to ask for is the index of the passport. So if I go back into live mode, you'll see that it's index 6, which means that if I look at record number 6, I can see that it is the passport. Finally, we've got another list, this time called the excluded result. And the excluded result is basically this list excluding the passport. So excluding the document required for the airport. Again, I've created an output object called excluded result, and this time round I've put the name in so that we'll be able to check that the name doesn't appear as passport anywhere in this object. So let's go live, And here's the excluded results. The first thing you can see is that compared to the original results, there were 7, now there are 6. I've got national insurance, driving license, checkbook, library card, and utility invoice, but I don't have the passport. So I've been able to exclude the passport. There's also combine, which allows you to combine 2 object lists into 1. For those of you who are thinking, these sound like the sort of thing we used to do in RuleScript, because you can't normally sort rows in Oracle Policy Modeling, you'd be absolutely right. Again, more functions added. These are more, shall we say, string-oriented, concatenate and trim. Concatenate, I'm just going to demonstrate it here. You can see concatenate is followed by an object list, followed by a field name, followed by a separator. So I have 2 family members, one called Anna, one called Todd. I've said, bring me the adults in the family, show their name, and separate them with commas. As it happens, both of those people are adults, so the result is Anna, Todd. And you'll notice that I put a space before my separator, so I get exactly what I gave. So I get Anna, space, comma, space, Todd. It's straightforward. Self-referencing is something that we've been able to do for a while in Oracle Policy Modeling, which is to avoid endless loops comparing instances. You know, if you have 2 children, and one is called Bob and one is called Richard, and they have they're both aged 11, and maybe you want to compare Bob and Richard to see if they're twins. You know, you get into this weird loop where it doesn't seem to understand that Bob and Richard are different children. And in Oracle Policy Modeling, we use aliases to let us do that properly. Well, the same basic idea now appears in decision services and flows. You can see here I have a filter function, and I'm able to compare 2 instances of the result by looking at the result score and comparing the result score to another instance of the same object. So I'm able to do things like find the higher score results. Let's go and have a look at that in action. So the higher score results, this object, you'll notice, is a child of results. So for each result, so let's say you're looking at the result called the checkbook. Obviously that will have a score. In this case, the score will be 4, and it will be called checkbook. But if we look carefully, we can see that driving license and national insurance have higher scores. So that's where these 2 would appear. They'd appear as the higher scoring results compared to that result. So let's go take a look. If I take a look at the checkbook, which is instance number 4, we where am I now? No, it's not instance number 4 because this is no longer sorted by name. It's sorted by acceptance value. So let's take a look at the checkbook, which has a score of 4. When we open up higher, we can see that national insurance and driving license are correctly identified as being the higher scoring results compared to checkbook. So that's what we were able to do with the self-referencing higher score results. So we've come to the end of this review of what's happened in 2024. Clearly there's been lots of new features added, lots of new rule functions, lots of kind of things that you expected to be there, like the version list and the editing comments. We can see there's a lot of investment in decision services and web authoring in general. We're moving very slowly towards parity in some future day. And I suppose the outlier is also the fact that now for customers who need full sovereignty, full cloud, full OCI, full data residency with one user interface for everything, if they're big OCI customers, then Generation 2 is a way forward. I look forward to seeing you again soon for an update to web authoring and decision services in particular. Thanks for watching this chapter. Bye-bye.